Hi students, let us see a topic today, understanding carbon footprint and emission, especially scope 1, 2 and 3. This video is specially designed to understand what is scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3. It is a path towards sustainability. So I am Dr. S. Rekha, Associate Professor, RMD Engineering College, Chennai. So what is carbon footprint? It is the total greenhouse gas which has been emitted directly or indirectly by an organization or by an individual. Okay, measured in terms of carbon dioxide equivalence. See, if carbon dioxide is emitted, it is the value of carbon dioxide as it is. If it is emitted with any other gas, any other greenhouse gas, that is converted into carbon dioxide equivalent value. Okay, includes emission from transport, energy, food, goods, and waste from everything. So greenhouse gas are atmospheric gases that absorbs and emits infrared radiation, trapping heat and warming the planet. So what is greenhouse gas? One which absorbs the heat and traps the heat. It absorbs the IR radiation and traps the heat, then we call that as greenhouse gas. This leads to global warming and this leads to climate change also. Okay, example of this is we have carbon dioxide, we have methane, nitrous oxide, nitrogen trifluoride, perfluorocarbons, hydrofluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluoride. These are the greenhouse gases. Why carbon footprint matters? Okay. Climate change is driven by GHG emission. Yeah. So there is a climate change and because of this greenhouse gases. Okay. Help track environmental impacts. Okay. Which area we have more environmental impact, where we need to improve. What are the sustainable tool we can use to reduce the carbon footprint value? Okay, encourages responsible production and consumption. Once you measure this carbon footprint value, it leads to responsible production and consumption, which leads to sustainable development. So what is emission scope? Okay, emission scopes are categories used to classify greenhouse gas emission according to their source as defined in the greenhouse gas protocol, GHG protocol, right? We have a book called GHG protocol. It is available online. Anytime you can download and you can see the standards and values in it. They help organization understand and track where their emission comes from. So this is emission. Okay. So this all these three is divided into these three scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. So scope 1 is direct emission. So we have a video on direct emission also. Scope 2, indirect emission from energy. Scope 2 is specifically for only for energy consumption, that is electricity, heating, cooling, all those things come under this category, purchased electricity. Scope 3, other indirect emissions in the value chain, that is either upstream or downstream. The product need to be manufactured, so there are so many processes in upstream. So that comes under scope 3. And once the product is ready, it has to be taken to the common man. There are a lot of supply chain. So that is downstream. That also come under scope 3. Okay, so this one we can see all these gases and we have the scopes. Okay, scope 1 direct emission, scope 2 indirect emission, scope 3 downstream, scope 3 here this side upstream. Scope 1 direct emission. So we'll see what is scope 1. Okay. Emission from owned controlled sources. If you own a source or the source which you can control the emission comes under your category. Okay. So that is direct emission. Example to understand in a better way. Fuel in a company vehicle. Okay. You have a vehicle. You are going to run that. Then you need a fuel. So fuel in a company vehicle. Boilers and generators. Okay. Factory machineries. All these things come under direct emission. If it burns, leaks, or emits on your property, in your vehicle, it is scope 1. Okay, if you are burning it, where if you are leaking it, that is emitting the gases, or you emit something uh, on your property or on your vehicle, it is scope 1. It comes under direct emission. Scope 2, indirect energy emission. So emission from purchased electricity, steam, heating and cooling. All these factors come under scope 2, which is indirect emission. This is completely based on only energy purchased electricity. Okay. So example, office electricity use, campus air conditioning, all these come under indirect energy emission. Emissions happening at the power plant, but because of you, the customer, they count it on your footprint. So it is indirect emission. Scope 3, value chain emission. So we have two area, upstream area, downstream area. What is upstream? Purchased good, transport, and it gets processed. Process will be direct emission, scope 1. Okay. Once the process is over, it goes to end user. Again, it is a scope 3. Product use, waste, business travel, everything. Okay. Additional examples, employee commuting. Okay, car, public transport are scope 3. Outsourced services, IT support, cleaning, scope 3. Business travel, flight, taxi, scope 3. Waste disposal, landfill, recycling, logistics, scope 3. Product delivery to customer, third party shipping, scope 3. So scope 3 is usually the largest part of company's carbon footprint. So we can say almost 70 percentage of the carbon footprint is on scope 3, both upstream put together, downstream, upstream and downstream put together. Okay, let us see the example how much we have understood. Company car driving. Will it come under which category? So yeah, you are right. It is scope 1. Okay. Office lighting. It is the electricity, right? It comes under which category? Yes, you are good. Scope 2 because it is the electricity usage. Employee commuting, which come under scope 3. Okay. For the product to be ready, you bring the employee here, which is in the supply chain, right? So commuting is scope 3. Vendor transport, it is upstream, right? Scope 3. It will also come under scope 3. Upstream or downstream, whatever it is scope 3. Gas heating in factory. So it comes under scope 1, direct heating. So once you do direct heating, it comes under scope 1. I hope so. Since you answered in a right way, you are understanding what is scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. Okay, how to reduce carbon footprint? Okay, general ideas. Use energy efficiently. Switch to, how to use this energy efficiently? Switch to LED lighting. Okay, energy efficient appliances, star rating is there in appliances, right? So go for highest star rating. So you reduce the electricity. Insulating buildings to reduce heating, cooling needs. Okay. Reduce electricity consumption, lower indirect emission from purchased energy. Okay. Shift to renewable energy scope 2. Install what you have to do, solar panel, choose green energy plans from your utility provider. So what you do, replace high carbon electricity with clean source, reducing purchase energy emission. Okay. Now reduce car travel and choose sustainable transport. How to do that? Scope 1, own vehicle. Scope 3, public transport, flight. So scope 1, own vehicle, reduce that usage. Okay. And scope 3, public transport, flight and all. Again, you can reduce it. So instead of that, what you can do, walk, cycle, carpool, use public transport for long distance, opt for train over flight. when possible. So if you do it, it is you are reducing the carbon footprint. Cut direct fuel consumption emission and indirect travel related emissions. So you can reduce your own direct travel consumption and indirect travel consumption also. Okay. So eat a low carbon diet. Okay, by eating food also you emit carbon dioxide. Yes, we are emitting it. Reduce meat, dairy consumption. Okay, favor local and seasonable producer. Okay, why transport emission, supply chain will get reduced. Scope 3 will get reduced if you use local food. Okay, cut food waste. Don't waste your food. So lower supply chain emission from food production, processing and transportation. Okay. Minimize waste. Reuse, repair, recycle materials. Avoid single-use plastic. Okay. So why single-use? Every time it has to be produced, so carbon dioxide equivalent value will become higher. But if you have reuse, repair, recycle, in this case, raw material extraction get reduced, right? So scope 3 in upstream get reduced. So totally when a product is formed, you have a less carbon footprint. Okay. This reduces emission from product manufacturing and waste disposal. Yes, you also reducing carbon footprint. So it is not going to waste, which where we need to have more energy for disposing. Instead of that, it is recycled for the raw material. So two area we are reducing the carbon emission. Okay, conserve water, scope 2 and scope 3. Fix leaks, use low flow fixtures and practice mindful water use. This will conserve the water means which will come under scope 2 and scope 3 depending upon the application. Support sustainable product and business, so which is scope 3. Buy from companies committed to reduce emission and ethical sourcing. Okay. Lower energy used for water treatment will be scope 2. Upstream supply chain emission will become scope 3. Okay. Offset unavoidable emission. So which will be scope 1, 2 and 3. So what we can do, invest in verified carbon offset project like reforestation, renewable energy program. Okay. Balance emission from all scopes through certified offset projects. Okay. Then you can reduce it. Okay. To understand it in a better way, students' personal carbon footprint. Okay. We have a student life, a carbon footprint value. We have scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Okay. So if we put it in that way, scope 1 will be 10 percentage. Directly we are emission will be just 10 percentage. Scope 2 from electricity part, you have 15 percentage. Scope through is 75 percentage. All people involved in bringing you what and all you are using, that is 75 percentage. Okay. So dominating factor is scope 3. So for student life, what is scope 3? From goods, food, services and travel. What is scope 2? For lighting, fan, laptop charging, etc. will be your scope 2. Scope 1, it is lowest from direct fuel use, personal transport and cooking. For you, direct usage is only personal transport and cooking. Hope so now it is more clear about what is scope 1, 2 and 3. Okay, just to summarize. So carbon footprint is nothing but total greenhouse gas emission given in terms of carbon dioxide equivalents. Okay. Scope 1 is nothing but direct emission. Scope 2 is purchased energy. Scope 3 is value chain, both upstream as well as downstream. Understanding carbon footprint helps reduce environmental impacts. Thank you, students. You start learning this carbon footprint, you are taking a step towards sustainability. Thank you.